Behind the pikemen came the halberdiers, moving through the chaos with terrible purpose, finishing any wounded who survived the initial pike assault. The mathematics of death were brutally simple. An 18-foot pike meant killing from beyond sword range. 3 feet of reach advantage translated to life or death. Count Hermann of Sully attempted to rally his men, screaming, "Hold! Hold for Austria! Hold for the Duke!" Then 3 pikes caught him simultaneously, groin, stomach, throat. His famous armor, decorated with gold filigree that proclaimed his wealth and status, could not save him from the physics of coordinated assault. The most elite warriors in Europe found themselves reduced to drowning victims, choking on their own blood, dying in mud like common peasants. The Swiss had discovered something that changed warfare forever. Armor had gaps, it had two for movement and flexibility, armpit joints where plates met, neck guards that allowed head rotation, visor slits for vision, all vulnerable to precisely aimed pike thrusts delivered by men who had practiced finding these weaknesses. But the Swiss learned something even more devastating through those first terrible minutes of contact. Horses, unlike their armored riders, wore limited protection. Target the mount, and a knight became a 280-pound turtle, flipped on its back, helpless. The Swiss began aiming low, crippling horses deliberately, creating barriers of thrashing, dying animals that further compressed the Austrian column and prevented any organized response. What followed transcended battle and became execution. As the pike wall drove the Austrians steadily toward the lake, Swiss halberdiers moved through the chaos like farmers harvesting grain, methodical and efficient. The halberd had been designed perfectly for this brutal work. The axe blade could split helmets and shatter bones. The spike could pierce chainmail at the joints where protection was thinnest. And the hook revolutionized everything. A knight's greatest advantage was height, sitting on horseback above infantry, able to strike downward while enemies struck up. The halberd's hook transformed that advantage into fatal liability. Swiss farmers would hook a knight's armor at the neck or armpit and simply pull. Gravity accomplished the rest. Once on the ground, a knight in full plate armor could not easily stand unassisted. The weight that protected them now pinned them like insects to a board. They became victims waiting for the spike end of the halberd to find the gaps in their armor. Baron Friedrich von Toggenburg learned this lesson in his final moments. Hooked from his saddle, he landed hard on his back with the full weight of his armor, driving breath from his lungs. He tried to surrender, offered ransom, promised gold enough to buy villages. The Swiss response was a halberd spike driven through his visor into his brain. No ransoms accepted, no noble privileges honored, just death in the mud, indistinguishable from any common soldier's ending. But then basic physics entered the equation with terrible force. The Austrian infantry, mostly commoners themselves who owed service to noble lords, attempted to flank around their dying betters. Some tried climbing the cliff face, seeking escape upward. Others pushed toward the lake, hoping water might offer refuge. Both choices proved equally fatal. The Swiss had positioned additional men on the heights with more rocks and logs ready. Those who fled upward were crushed by boulders that tumbled down with unstoppable momentum. Those who fled toward water discovered why armor and swimming occupy opposite ends of possibility. The halberd harvest continued with mechanical efficiency, farmers working through nobility like butchers processing livestock. Every dead knight represented a crack in feudalism's foundation. These were not merely soldiers dying, they were the military elite, those who fight, in the three-order system that had structured medieval society for centuries. Each corpse represented a family's martial tradition, ending in a mountain pass, bloodlines extinguished, noble houses left without heirs. The western edge of Moorgarden Pass bordered Lake Egeria directly. As Swiss pressure intensified and Austrian options evaporated, hundreds were pushed inexorably toward the water. Knights who had spent fortunes equating to modern millions on their armor discovered its fundamental fatal flaw in those desperate moments. Steel does not float. The lake turned red with noble blood, not metaphor but observed fact recorded by multiple chroniclers. Heinrich von Hunenberg made it 20 feet from shore before 60 pounds of armor dragged him under. His squire, wearing lighter equipment, dove in, attempting rescue. Both drowned, locked together in a final embrace beneath dark water. The Swiss lined the shore with pikemen, preventing any escape by swimming. Those few who managed to shed armor in time, who stripped themselves naked to survive, were speared like fish as they struggled through the shallows. This next detail still generates debate among military historians who find it almost too brutal to credit, yet multiple sources confirm it. The Swiss showed no mercy whatsoever. Medieval custom, honored across Christendom, demanded ransoming noble prisoners. It was profitable, civilized, expected, but these farmers had endured years under Habsburg oppression. They remembered crops seized at harvest, homes burned for failure to meet impossible tribute demands, neighbors hanged for imagined infractions. This was not war to them in the traditional sense. This was justice delivered through 18 feet of ash wood and iron. Every drowning night represented payback for decades of accumulated abuse and humiliation. Duke Leopold, watching from the column's center as his world collapsed, saw not merely military defeat, but the complete inversion of natural order. These were not soldiers following understood rules of chivalry. These were farmers who had discovered something terrifying, that organized commoners could slaughter nobility like cattle, that steel and bloodline meant nothing against coordination and determination. The impossible had become inevitable before his eyes. Water and blood mixed as more Austrians chose drowning over pike thrusts, some shedding armor in panic, others too shocked to act rationally. Some accounts describe Swiss halberdiers wading into the shallows to push floating knights underwater with their weapons, ensuring none survived to carry tales of what had occurred. Others describe farmers waiting in the lake's edge to finish wounded enemies, with the same practical efficiency they would use on injured livestock. What remains certain across all chronicles is that Lake Egery became a mass grave for Austrian nobility, its waters holding secrets that would surface for weeks as bodies bloated and rose. But the killing had barely begun. The compressed column meant most Austrians could not even reach the battle's front. They could only wait their turn to die, hearing screams ahead, unable to see what produced such terror, trapped by their own numbers. Panic spread faster than any order could counter it, a contagion of fear that dissolved discipline. The moment came when Austrian cohesion finally shattered completely beyond any hope of recovery. It started when Duke Leopold's personal banner fell. The hereditary banner-bearer, Graf von Arburg, took 5 pike thrusts while attempting to keep the standard raised. As the red Habsburg lion tumbled into the mud, trampled under fleeing boots, a collective gasp went through Austrian ranks. If the Duke's own banner could fall, what hope remained? Retreat! Save yourselves! The cry spread like wildfire through tinder-dry ranks, but retreating meant turning your back on those advancing pikes. It meant pushing through your own men, trampling the wounded, abandoning comrades. The ordered withdrawal Leopold might have managed transformed into every man for himself catastrophe. The Swiss pursued with disciplined fury that was somehow more terrifying than wild bloodlust. No chaotic chase. They maintained formation, advancing steadily, killing with mechanical efficiency. Fleeing men in heavy armor could not outrun farmers who knew every trail, every shortcut, every hiding place these mountains offered. The 2-mile column became a 2-mile killing field painted in noble blood. Knights threw away swords worth fortunes to run faster. Men at arms shed armor their families had saved years to purchase, choosing life over heritage. What happened in those next moments would echo through European history for generations. Duke Leopold himself, the mighty duke who had come to teach peasants their proper place in God's ordained hierarchy, cut the distinctive markings from his own banner to avoid recognition and fled on foot like a common thief, abandoning his horse, his household guard, his honor, everything that defined his identity as noble warrior. The man who had planned to be remembered as Leopold the Glorious now ran from peasants armed with farming tools, terror overwhelming pride. The Swiss battle cry echoed through the valley with savage joy. No quarter for oppressors! They chased fleeing Austrians for miles beyond the pass itself. Farmers with agricultural implements hunting the military elite of the Holy Roman Empire, the natural order inverted completely. Local villagers who had suffered under Austrian occupation joined the pursuit, attacking survivors with whatever tools came to hand. Ancient grudges, years of accumulated resentment, found sudden violent outlet. By noon, it was over. The greatest punitive expedition in Habsburg history had become their greatest military disaster in living memory. The final toll defied belief and strains credibility even now. Austrian losses exceeded 2,000 dead, including 1,500 nobles and knights. The cream of Austrian nobility, families whose lineages stretched back to Charlemagne, lay dead in a Swiss meadow. Entire noble houses lost their male heirs in a single morning. The military power of several Habsburg duchies evaporated between breakfast and lunch. Swiss losses, fewer than 20 men. The casualty ratio of 100 to 1 seemed impossible, yet multiple independent sources confirm it. How could farmers achieve what professional armies could not? The answer resided in coordination, terrain mastery, and above all, motivation. The Swiss fought for freedom, for their families, for the right to govern themselves. The Austrians fought for their duke's pride and ambition. As the sun reached its zenith over the blood-soaked pass, the battlefield presented a scene from humanity's darkest imagination. Noble corpses in expensive armor littered the narrow corridor. Horses worth fortunes lay dead or dying, their screams gradually fading. Swords, lances, shields, enough equipment to arm several armies covered the ground like autumn leaves. The Swiss collected everything with farmers' practicality, waste not, want not. The very armor that had failed to protect its owners would now equip Confederate forces. Austrian weapons would arm Swiss fighters for generations. The tools of oppression had become instruments of liberation, a transformation as profound as the battle itself. Within weeks, the news spread across Europe like wildfire. In taverns and marketplaces, in castle halls and peasant hovels, people whispered the impossible. Swiss farmers had destroyed an imperial army. The knights were mortal. Armor could be pierced. The age of chivalry had ended in a single afternoon. If Swiss farmers could destroy Habsburg knights, what else might be possible? Duke Leopold's humiliation was complete and permanent. He had lost cousins, uncles, loyal vassals. His military reputation lay shattered beyond any hope of repair. The young duke who had planned to be remembered as the Glorious would forever be known as Leopold the Defeated, the noble who fled from farmers. The Swiss celebrated with characteristic pragmatism. They gathered at the battlefield for prayers of thanksgiving, not boastful festivities. These were practical men who understood they had won a battle, not ended a war. Werner Stauffacher reminded them solemnly, "Today we proved free men can defeat tyrants. Tomorrow we must prove we can remain free." But the real victory extended far beyond Morgarten Pass. Within weeks, peasant uprisings erupted across the empire. The idea spread faster than any army could march. Organized peasants with pikes could defeat mounted knights. Morgarten was not merely a Swiss victory. It was a template for revolution, a blueprint for challenging feudal power. The Battle of Morgarten birthed the Swiss mercenary tradition that would dominate European warfare for 2 centuries. Kings and popes paid fortunes to hire these mountain farmers whose reputation for discipline and effectiveness became legendary. The Vatican Swiss Guard, still serving today in their Renaissance uniforms, traces its origins to Morgarten's bloody morning. Pike square formations spread across the continent like a military innovation virus. The social implications ran even deeper. If farmers could defeat nobles in battle, what else might commoners accomplish? Democracy was not born in ancient Athens alone. It was reborn in Swiss mountain passes, where farmers decided their own fate, and defended that choice with wooden pikes and iron determination. Today, Switzerland remains neutral, prosperous, and democratic. The spirit of Morgarten collective defense, citizen soldiers, suspicion of outside power, still shapes Swiss identity. Those farmers with sharpened sticks created more than military victory. They proved that ordinary people, properly organized and motivated, can overcome any elite force. In 90 minutes, they killed not just 2,000 knights, but an entire age, demonstrating that courage plus coordination beats privilege plus tradition. If this story of revolution forged in blood and determination moved you, subscribe to Flow of History for more tales of the pivotal moments when ordinary people changed the world forever. Ring the notification bell and join us as we uncover the human stories behind history's greatest turning points.